Mr. Tendangurisa and the CBO Institute team. Welcome to the city, welcome to Bulawayo. I want to acknowledge residents associations that are hereby represented, coming from various cities, Akwelu, Bulawayo, Mutare, Harare. And allow me to acknowledge all protocol. Thank you so much for visiting the city of Bulawayo. Thank you so much for making this workshop to be in our city. You could have gone to any of these cities, and I'm sure you could have been warmly received, but you chose to come to Bulawayo. For that, we are very grateful. We are humbled to be a city, to be participating in the launch of the service tracker. Why? Because as a city of excellence, or as a leadership city, our trust and our desire is to see an improvement in whatever we do. And as Bulawayo, we've been working not only with residents associations, but with other stakeholders to ensure that our services are inclusive and that they are participatory, and also that there's equity when it comes to access and also giving people a voice. The city of Bulawayo, when it comes to service tracking, not only have a participatory platform of engagement, but we also have developed what we call service level standards, which ensure that any service that we give has a measurement, any service that we give has a timeline. Why? Because it allows us to be then able to monitor from not only the service provider side, but also stakeholders can monitor. So these service level standards that were developed, this is one of the books. They basically will tell you when it comes to health services, how we are supposed to respond, whether to a client in the clinic, how we are supposed to respond when it comes to refuse collection, and also what is the quality of the service that we are supposed to provide to the residents. Ladies, it is not only about is provided and how the service is provided. I think the issue of time and efficiency is what brings us here. We are all aware that our cities are facing various challenges, and if you come from Bulawayo, I think you're facing a bigger challenge than all of us, because you know our water issue has been very prominent and problematic when it comes to ensuring that we are able to get water from the tap. We are going through one of the worst droughts that we've ever had as a city. So we are now having to ensure that we continuously keep in contact with our stakeholders. When it comes to what is needed to track services, we don't only want to track when services are provided, and not only how they are provided, but it is key that we also track the resources. Are they being provided efficiently? Are we using the best method to ensure that there is efficiency? Where is the wastage? So as the city, we hope that such platforms that bring us together with stakeholders will be able to interrogate not only how the finances are put in, but their usage. As Bulawayo, we've also been implementing the vehicle tracking, which allows us to monitor our vehicles when it comes to service delivery, to ensure that we are attending to residents, using the resources at the right place at the right time. We all know that as human beings, it's easy to have so many priorities and emergencies. But with vehicle tracking, it ensures that when the vehicle leaves the city offices or premises, it is going to where it's supposed to go. So that has allowed us, I think we've had vehicle tracking, whether it's 3 or 4 years now, and it's allowed us to cut off some of the leakages that we would normally experience if we're not able to access the resources being used. And also when it comes to citizen engagement, I think the issue of tracking customer complaints or faults is key. As the city of Bulawayo, we do have a call center, and that call center is 24 hours, 7 days a week. It allows us to firstly take the information from the client where there's a service fault, and also once we get that information, we assign it a number. So that number, or that fault number, is what we use to then track the fault through the system. So when it gets to the call center, we then are able to liaise with the plumbers as well to ensure and find out who is doing what, who was assigned the problem, who was assigned the fault, why is it taking long. And one of the things that has allowed us to see is the efficiency in terms of doing work. Because if you've got teams of plumbers and they are assigned the same work or similar problems, why is it that so-and-so takes less and so-and-so takes longer? So those are things that you can then use to monitor performance of your personnel. Also with tracking, while we do receive a lot of calls and reports from clients, the issue of assigning the resources to ensure that there's responsiveness to those faults is where we are now. So without finance, without resources, any tracking system, I believe, will not work. Why? Because we just become a talk show, we become a monitoring mechanism. If we are tracking a service, how much income came in, how much material and resources came in, how were they used, what was needed, was it efficiently or sufficiently resourced? So I think those are key questions that we need to ask, because we are the stakeholders, we are the owners of the city, or the cities that we come from. I'm also humbled to have the other cities with us today. Bulawayo is always welcoming, and we want to be a learning city because we believe that you are probably doing a lot of things better than us. So we don't want to sit with our head in the sand and become irrelevant. So we thank you for coming so that we learn from you. And also such platforms should be used for best practices, and also ensuring that we are taking our nation, because, you know, as much as people like to talk about central government, sometimes the ball stops with local government. If we can get cities to work, we can get the country to work. So let's start on the ground. Let's start with what we have. It may not be much when you look at resources, but you yourself and the information you have, the passion you have for the city, it's enough to move that city forward. So with those few words, thank you for coming to Bulawayo. It is a bit hot and we are expectant of rains. So please enjoy our city, please enjoy the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mpofu. Before we get started with the actual deliberations, before Dr. Mulisa comes to set up the meeting, just want to go around the room quickly and ask each of us to just stand, turn and face the rest of the delegates, give us your name that you would like to be addressed by throughout these deliberations, so that as we speak we know who we are. And if you could also just indicate from which city or if you could indicate which city and group you are representing, that will also help us in the process of our interactions through the day. So we will start right over here, and I guess we will zigzag through these tables, then come over to that side of the room, and then finish up on this side of the room. So, Mr. Chikwale.
First of all, I want to zero shade of the pastor so that people are comfortable. I would like you to refer to me as David. Right?
My name is Cornelius Edikwe. I'm from Gweru Residents and Ratepayers Association. I've already written my name, so I think for your sake, I would want to be called Cornelia.
Good morning, all of you. Now I would like to welcome you to City of Bulawayo. My name is Mr. Mpofu. I am from Bulawayo City Council Financial Services.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ambrose Sibinj. I am from Bulawayo. I am chairing the Bulawayo Progressive Association. So I'd like to welcome our colleagues from other cities, the rest association. Thank you.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Luisa Mandisi. I'm from Bulawayo. I'm the SG, Bura SG. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Shepherd Mokosa. I'm the secretary for the section of Bulawayo Residents Association.
The Thai and Afro City SG.
morning, all everyone. I'm Yoda Beta Rwandura. You can refer to me as Yoda. And I come from Harare.
I'm coming from Italy, United States, and
I'll come this side and then we'll go with that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eda, and I'm coming from Harare, and I'm part of Experience.
Morning, everyone. My name is Sungan Zeche. I'm based in Bulawayo. I'm from an organization called Corporate Child Impact. I'm also part of the CBO policy advocacy network.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Claude Peter. Just have the choice of big crush. I'm from God Progressive Association.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maxim Mumbe, resident in Bulawayo. I'm also part of the civil policy advocacy.
Oh, sorry, behind you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Eugenia Kidele. I am part of the faculty that teaches sports and
Salmona Dijani Yalemukela koBulawayo okhulumayo ngubaba uDube umgcinisihlalo wenhlanganiso yezakhamizi iBulawayo United Residents Association, the mother of all the resident associations in this country.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Nube. I'm from Bulawayo City Council Health Services Department. You can call me Patrick.
Good morning again. My name is Nessa Sampoku. I'm from City. I'm in public relations. Not sure what you want to call me. Nessa, I'm comfortable with anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we are just introducing ourselves by name and organization represented. Could I ask you to, as you settle down, just let us know who you are?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Engineer Malik from the city of Bulawayo. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Good morning, everyone. I am Mary from the city of Bulawayo.
Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
That's more like it. Yeah, my name is Delta Mbonisi Sivan. Means Aloyara Pabula, but in say they are rare, but these days in Bulawayo. So it's like shooting one. I be so the man be the number Mbonisi Delta Masham Sivan in Susan. Okay, move.
Amavubo wawethu igama lami kuthiwa nguTendai but masikhosa ushangani lapha ngiyajinja ngisengumubongani ngikhulela lapha eNtumbane ngafunda lapha kodwa kathesi njengoDelta ngihlale Harare ngisebenzela iCBO Institute.
Morning, everyone. My name is Michael. I am part of the CBO Institute team. I stay in Harare.
Thank you. We have silent partners with us. As you can see, we've got a tech team working cameras and vision mixing. We are streaming this particular workshop today, and so we want to extend our gratitude and thanks to the continued support of the team from site who are constantly working with our city council as well, the residency of Bulawayo, and I'm sure today reaching across the 4 cities represented here, everyone is able to participate in this meeting. So without further ado, and mindful of my time, I'll now call on Dr. Tendai Murisa, who will come and give us the background of our project and the journey that has been taken to the launching of this tracker today. Dr. Murisa.
Yes, umfundisi lo kazangu ukuthi sengumubongani. Ngixoxisa la. All right, colleagues, a warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this is okay for the Is this okay for you guys? Okay, great stuff. So we are, for many of you, you'll be wondering what is it about Severe Institute? Some think it's an acronym, others whatever. So I'll take you through the journey of who we are and what we work on. Severe Institute as an organization, our work is structured around 3 program areas or 3 focus areas. We look at policy analysis and advocacy, starting from the ground all the way to national level, Africa-wide issues. Severe Institute is registered both in Zimbabwe and also we work across Africa. Then we also have a program that is focused on developing entrepreneurship and financial inclusion in Zimbabwe. I'll explain why these centers. Then we have another center which we call the Center for Philanthropy and Communities. So this is mostly how our work is structured. And as we were establishing Severe Institute, it's a fairly new organization, started in 2018 or 2017, soon after or in the middle of what they called the coup, which was not a coup. There's a long history to why at that time. But we committed ourselves to contributing towards resolving certain problems that we saw defining Zimbabwe, enduring problems that have no easy solution. Increasing poverty and inequality, the weak performance of government's public policies and strategies, limited trust between state and citizens. We see this across the limited trust at a local government level, at a national government level. And this is not a problem that is unique to Zimbabwe. There's generally, globally, there's a decline in the trust that citizens have in terms of the elected officials. So we're actually in a flux globally around the relationship between government and its citizens. So we see this as an issue that is affecting the public space, the levels of trust, so that if some of us, if we go there, they want to know first of all who's funding you, what's your agenda, etc. And when they come into our places, we're saying, maybe Masiai, Chinchin. All that is explaining the level of what? Of trust, the diminishing levels of trust. That politicians come during election time, they promise us all good things, then they disappear. So that does not foster trust. So this is one of the problems that we're trying to sort of resolve. Then I'll just stop at the 4th one, the lack of adequate mechanisms to enhance government accountability. I want to go back to the weak performance of government's public policies and strategies, because this is why we are here. When we talk of governments, we are not talking only of the national government. We're also talking of the local government. Local government being our local authorities, Bulawayo City Council, Harare City Council, Mutare, Gweru, etc. We see that there is what you may call lack of effective government at the local level and also at the national government level. The issue of effectiveness is not that there's an absence of policies. The issue of effectiveness is that there's a limited follow-on or implementation of the said policies. So if you're to go and tick policies, you may find that all the policies are in place and they are good policies. But the challenge that we have is follow through, that performance aspect, which is what at Severe, I think we've become sort of known for the work we do around tracking performance or tracking government promises vis-a-vis its actions. So, yeah, please. Please don't get out of the presentation. Okay. So this is just generally a figure that sort of explains everything. What at the center there, our concern when everything is said and done is the focus on citizens. The thrust of Severe Institute, if you're to go to our website, one of the things that you will see is in 2020, we make a bet on citizens to say this is good. The survival or sort of the successful outcomes to do with COVID-19 responses have mostly been driven by citizen-led initiatives, and it's also in partnership with government, local government, etc. So we use different tools, but one of our signature approaches is the leveraging of technology. We believe so much in leveraging technology. I'll explain this in a simple way. When we started, we were and we still remain a low-cost organization. but technology allows us to do a lot of things just by leveraging that technology, and then by just using that technology in terms of communicating what we do. So for instance, one of the things that our signature platform, which is called Zim Citizens Watch, which I'll go into, has been viewed several times by many people without people realizing that the organization behind this is only a 9 or 10 member organization. But we're tracking government and we leverage technology, which is the same thing that we're trying to introduce at a local government level, to say to what extent can we use data or evidence to drive local authority performance, but also to drive new levels and discussions of accountability. Can you move on, please? So our approach is the tools that we use. We're mostly a policy-focused research organization. We spend a lot of time researching around policy problems and what governments are doing, either at the local level and the national level. We've also invested a lot. Move to page. We've also invested a lot in training and capacity building. When others were closing down to say, oh, COVID has happened, we actually looked like we had reopened. You know, we sort of had new energy around it. In the past 6 months, we have carried out 4 training initiatives. Correct me if I'm wrong, my team. We trained colleagues in residents associations. It was an 8-week intensive program. We trained colleagues that were doing public policy analysis and advocacy, an online course that took 2 months, 2.5 months, thereabouts. Then we've been training the next generation of entrepreneurs. All of this based on technology platforms. Very limited face-to-face. This is our first face-to-face meeting since the lockdown. But based on the technology platforms that we've set up, we could expand our training. And actually it was an opportunity in the crisis because of our sort of migration into online platforms, where we had budgets where we could only train 15 or 20 people. We found ourselves training 50, 60 people, etc., without cost to do with hotels and teas, etc., etc. Then, like I said, we leveraged. Let's talk about our approach, which is really when we say we're an advocacy organization. Our lens or focus area is on fostering what you call effectiveness, state effectiveness, at both the national and local government level. So this is our signature platform that we launched in 2018, the Zim Citizens Watch platform. This platform is based on analysis of political party manifestos during elections. All the political parties came up with manifestos. We spent time analyzing the manifestos, and we produced what we called the policy analysis, manifesto analysis tool. Yeah, ZIMAT, Zimbabwe Manifesto Analysis Tool, which we analyzed how political parties differed or agreed around social policy, economic policy, human rights, etc. We wrote some articles to say that there's little difference, for instance, between the MDCA and ZANU-PF on economic policy. The huge difference was around political and civil rights, how they're going to promote that, etc. But after the elections, when the swearing in had happened, we took the ZANU-PF manifesto and we broke down its promises. The promises that it made in its manifesto are around 239. 239 promises, and we broke them down into 8 areas: the economy, agriculture and rural development, social services, trade and international relations, local governance, youth and gender, governance, politics and civil rights, and corruption. So many of the promises, in fact, all the promises either fit into any of those clusters. So as of yesterday, I think, when we finalized this slide, this is an online tool. You can find it anywhere if you just click that link. Of the 239 promises, government, 180 are in progress, 49 have not been commenced, 0 have been modified, 6 have been broken, only 4 have been completely implemented as of 2 days ago. So you can check. We do this on a daily basis. We track using, our method is to track using cabinet summaries that are given on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, then newspaper articles. So for everything that we write, you can click and find our source. Why we're saying this has been done, etc. You can click and you find our source. So besides that tracker, to say you voted in 2018, despite the fact that maybe the party you chose did not win, download on our website. There's one that is called Dancing on the Same Spot. This is a bit of a very pessimistic report. based on the fact that we're seeing very little traction in terms of citizen performance of government. And here we're not talking only of national government, but also local authorities. The performance will show you as we go along in the presentation. Okay. So we, in our citizens' perception and expectation survey that we carried out in November and December, these are the number of respondents we spoke to the cities that sort of mirror this discussion, except maybe for Masvingo. All the other cities are represented here. The number of respondents we spoke to, and this was based on this is part of it. So as you can see, etc. But at the time of our survey, this was the governing party. We know there have been some recalls, etc., etc. But we just want to demonstrate the rating just of clean water provision by local councils across 5 cities. Let's start with Bulawayo. The blue, is that blue? I'm struggling with color. That's blue, right? The first color. So you can look at the number of people or the percentage of people who say it has increased a lot. Then the orange, just slightly above 10%, will say it has moderately increased. Then I think the majority, in terms of when you look at the responses, the majority in that city in Bulawayo is actually those who say it has remained the same. That nothing has changed since 2018. It has remained the same. Then there's also a significant population that you would be worried about if you're looking at it, close to 30% that are saying it has decreased, it has gone bad. Then others are saying, look, there's nothing going on, non-existent, slightly above 10%. Then you look at, no, please, take me back, I was still doing Bulawayo. Listen. So, if you look at Harare, clean water, it's more or less the same trend, right? But look at the final one, the blues, Natsai, this look like the same colors. Okay, the other blue.
The first one is purple.
The first one is purple.
And the last one is blue.
They say I'm colorblind, actually. Yeah. But let me just point it out. So you can see that for Bulawayo, we're saying that it's just like slightly 10%. We're saying it's non-existent. But look at Harare, over 40%. We're saying when you talk about clean water provision, we don't know what you're talking about because it's not there. Yeah. Then increased or decreased. The decreased one is also the issue. It has decreased. Then in Gweru, more or less a fair distribution around those who are saying moderately increased, remain the same. Oh, they're not here. Let's not talk about it. They want to get to Great Zimbabwe. But those are the issues around water. And we're going to be dealing a lot with the water problem today. So it's very important that we pack this as it is and just look at it. Bulawayo, for all your challenges that Mrs. Pof, you are raising, you can actually see that in terms of rating, citizens actually think in a more positive way when it comes to Bulawayo and how it's responding or dealing with the challenges of water compared to other cities. And also, there will be a very interesting contradiction between Bulawayo and Mutare. Bulawayo faces a challenge of saying we don't have raw water to purify. Mutare says we have a lot of raw water to purify, but we just don't know how to do it. So I always say, when I look at the Mutare every data and I say, you people in Mutare, when the people in Bulawayo see you, they will fight you one day. You know what I mean? Because in Mutare, the problem is about leakage, wastage, etc., etc. Not that there's a shortage of water, but it's just the capacity to take that water into people's what? To people's homes. That's the challenge. So you see, the contradiction and the challenges around water are not the same. We may have a water issue, but the underlying problem is different by city. Yeah. For Harare, when you talk to Harare and say, why is it that people are rating it this way? Harare always raises the issue of the cost of cleaning water. So it's also not an issue of saying we don't have raw water, but they're saying we need chemicals. The budget for cleaning water for Harare is, for some reason, the scientists are here and they can explain later, for some reason, it's always higher than any of the other cities because of the industrial effluent that they have to deal with. So the problem can look like clean access to water, but the underlying problems are different. And that's very important for us when we talk about advocacy, because the advocacy actions tend to be different. Okay, now you can move. Garbage collection. Again, citizens feel like Bulawayo has not increased, that very few are happy with garbage collection. You see that the higher number again is those who are saying it has remained the same. While when you go to Harare, the higher number are those who are saying it has decreased or non-existent. So if you combine, if you look at the decreased and non-existent as the negative ones, you actually see that there's a higher population in Harare that is not happy with council performance just to do with garbage collection and disposal. The trend continues, but look at, I think Gweru and Mutare are more or less the same. The majority in Gweru are saying, over 40% are saying it has remained the same. We don't see any difference since 2018, since the elections, because that's our baseline. We're measuring from the elections to say, have the elections changed anything given the promises that were made by politicians? That's the effectiveness question. Okay, you can move to the next one. Provision of housing. Again, in Bulawayo, the majority feel like nothing has changed, remain the same. Harare, the majority also feel like nothing has changed, remain the same. But there's also a very significant population, above 30% in Harare, that's saying actually things have worsened. Yeah? This is just what citizens think. Mutare, the majority remain the same. Gweru, the majority remain the same. Provision of health care by local councils across 5 cities. This is very important because it's one of the pillars of most local authorities, especially now, the season that we then entered in March up to now. There's been a focus on your capacity as local authorities to provide health care to residents. So in Bulawayo, it has decreased and become non-existent. That's the majority of the people, around 38-39%. I feel that way. Only a small percentage feel that it has remained the same. Those who think that it has increased a lot have disappeared. You don't see them at all. Then when it comes to Harare, definitely there's no one who says it has increased at all. Those who feel like it has decreased or is non-existent. In Mutare, it's decreased. That's the majority, over 50% or 60% actually, think that health provision by local councils has worsened, it has decreased. Then Gweru, the majority, yeah, it's decreased. Then there's a smaller, tiny majority that says remain the same. So this is data, and I think data is important for all of us as residents associations, but also as city planners, as those, because when you're making decisions, it's very important to understand what your citizens or your residents, what your stakeholders, what they are feeling, what they see, because this is what they are just seeing. They are not going to go to your budget to analyze how much money you allocated, but this is just based on their lived experiences when it comes to these services that they are getting. Okay, let's leave education. Okay, so, but then we also tend to ask, we always say, okay, you're saying all these positive or negative things about your city. What are the factors that you think are actually inhibiting the effectiveness of your council? Look at the problem we have. 80% of our residents across cities believe that corruption is the biggest inhibitor of the effectiveness of council. Yeah? Followed by those who think that maybe leadership issues, that we don't have adequate capacity to lead the cities. This could be both the elected officials and those who run the bureaucracies in the councils. Then there's also those who think incompetence, lack of political will, lack of integrity, limited financial resources. So if you remember, one of the things that we said as CVO we want to deal with at the beginning is to deal with limited trust. These are the drivers of trust issues between citizens and local authorities. They don't trust local authorities because they perceive them as corrupt. They perceive them as if they are driven by ineffective leaders who are incompetent as well. So if cities do not make an attempt to resolve these issues, that lack of trust continues to exist. So these are the challenges that we face. Okay. The majority of the citizens, if you were to ask them to prioritize, what would you expect from your local authority? The majority would say, we want regular supply of clean water. So that's why we ended up, the overall theme of our intervention ended up just focusing on clean water. Because based on this data and also other studies that we carried out, it looks like water is an issue that cuts across most of our cities. Just this access to water, followed by garbage disposal. Am I right? Yeah, followed by garbage disposal. Then the regular road network maintenance. I come from Bulawayo, but I've been gone for years. I was surprised by the state of the roads yesterday when I was taken around I was just shocked. But this is exactly where we are. I live in Harare. Roads are non-existent now. Where there used to be tarred roads, it just looks like paved roads, etc. So this is a major issue that also cuts across cities. Okay. So now the local government tracker, just the background. We've already said that we are fascinated with what political parties seeking office promise citizens. We always try to remind citizens to say, remember what they promised you. And it's always a 5-year journey. And we always, the challenge we have when it comes to elections in Africa, not only in Zimbabwe, at the time of when they are wooing you as voters, it always looks like we're starting afresh. There is no accountability on previous performance. We rarely talk about what a political party has achieved to date. We always focus on teacher, we will. Yeah? So that's a continuous cycle, rarely with evidence or data or an analysis of what has happened in the past 5 years. We have a very interesting situation in Zimbabwe where most of our local authorities are run by the biggest opposition party, well, before its problems. Then national government is run by another political party. So it's literally, when you're talking about local authorities, you have to be looking at what you call maybe the opposition party, given its promises. So when we are trying to track what the performance of local authorities is, we have to go to the governing party's manifesto to say, what did they promise citizens? These are the sort of the promises they made in the 2018 elections, that they will regenerate, repair, refurbish, and remodel existing cities. I don't know what that means, but that's what they promised. Construct new modern smart cities and expand existing ones. Convert and expand all major growth points into smart plus hubs. Yeah? And also they will resolve the housing crisis in Zimbabwe and demand that all local authorities provide updated housing master plans that provide a planning and coordinated framework for expanded housing capacity within the context of their smart cities agenda. If you remember very well the data we showed, there's also pessimism around the delivery of housing, pessimism around the delivery of water. And this is 2020. Our survey was done at the end of 2019 into 2020. So at that time, citizens had not seen the manifestation of these promises. Let's move on. So now as we worked with residents associations across in the 4 cities in Bulawayo, Gweru, Harare, and Mutare, one of the things that we did, we went through an 8-week or 9-week course on improving residents association responses, how they can better engage with the local authorities, how can they make advocacy more effective in terms of how they engage. And but we felt like just leaving it at the level of just the training and walking away would not be enough. But we felt like if we were to support the work that residents associations do, and this is informed by, I think it was hinted here, there's a song or an advert that says, "Smart inotangira kushoka." Yeah? We believe that democracy starts at the local level. That if we do not create citizens at the local level that feel confident that they can engage with office holders and extract policy changes, let's forget about the national. Because smart inotangira kushoka, democracy in its original conception was always a local project about improving local governance. So we're very keen to say that how do we enhance democracy at the local level? And we see residents associations playing a pivotal role in mobilizing citizens into action, in mobilizing conversation with cities in a cordial and in a way that they can also be seen not just as those noise makers, but as people who are working with local authorities to build their cities. So in all those things, we're looking at models of co-production. What is it that residents associations can bring to the table? If you remember what Mrs. Poff was telling us about Bulawayo, to what extent are residents associations actually monitoring that this vehicle tracker that has been introduced is actually contributing to cutting costs? And to what extent are we utilizing those costs that we've cut into other developmental projects? But all that, we felt like we need to sort of come to a place whereby we have a tracker which is online, openly accessible. Can you move on? So our tracker is based on data again. We collect data from households on local service delivery around 4 areas. Just take me back, sorry. Around these areas. So that's water delivery, that's refuse collection, and that's health at local level. Then that's the calculator, the sign of the calculator there is also tracking budget performance. How much money is being allocated towards all these things that we're talking about. So this is, the budget part is based on us accessing the Bulawayo City Council's budget, then breaking down to say, of the budget, how much money is going towards water, of the budget, how much money is going towards refuse collection, of the budget, how much is going towards health. Then we begin to break it down, to begin to say, were they even serious about providing? Because it's always going to tell us that you can say one thing, but how much money are you really allocating towards resolving the problem? So what we then do is we take advantage again. We took advantage of the lockdown measures. We then developed measures that we no longer are going to knock on residents' doors to answer our questionnaire. We've got a database of respondents who are spread around Kulumani, Chavalala, Nketa, Mziligazi, Makokova, who respond to our questionnaire, which is sent to them via WhatsApp link. So every month they respond to our questionnaire, rating to say, in the last 4 weeks, did you have water? In the last 4 weeks, how many times was refuse collected? In the last 4 weeks, did you visit clinic? And when you visited clinic, did you get the treatment you required, or you were told to come back the following day? Did you get the medicine you required, etc.? So every 4 weeks, this survey is sent out to residents just on their WhatsApp platforms, and they answer. Then we also provide support for their data needs, etc. But we believe that this is a database of spread across the 4 cities. This is a database that can remain anonymous, but it's ranking and it's rating the performance of the local authority, just based on their lived experience. Amanzi belilawo amalanga amangaki in the past 4 weeks. So some of them have actually learned based on the questions that we ask to keep diaries of when they have water. Then we can begin to sort of track what's going on. So water provision, the greatest percentage of respondents across the 4 cities indicated that the frequency of municipality water in July was as follows. We have data for July, August, and I think the September data is being cleaned up on the tracker. So 35% in Bulawayo received municipality water 2 days per week. 29.4% in Gweru received municipality water 4 days per week. 21% in Harare received municipality water 3 days a week. 65% in Mutare always had municipality water 7 days a week. So Michael will take you through how that works, how that sophisticated thing works. Because when you're on it, and if you press where there's Bulawayo there, it will give you all the Bulawayo data, etc., etc. Let's move on. So how often does the municipality collect refuse from your home? Across the cities again, majority of respondents indicated that the frequency of refuse collection was once a week. Harare 51.3%. Look at Bulawayo and Gweru doing very well. In fact, all the other cities except Harare. So there's a positive rating on refuse collection. It's all above 50%, but Harare could do better, 51.3%. So it means that there are others who feel that the collection of refuse is not as uniform as it should be. Because I think the standard practice should be at least once a week. But you can see when you look at the data in Harare, 51.3%, you want to understand where the other 48% think, what they think about refuse collection. Okay, so this is August data now. Primary health care, the majority of respondents across the 4 cities indicated that they got attended to after 2 to 4 hours of waiting at the local clinic. I don't know if that's standard for local authorities to say people should wait 2 to 4 hours, or we can improve on that. But this is what we're getting, that people have to wait in between 2 to 4 hours. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm done, right? Yeah. So Michael will take us through how the local governance tracker works, and also, but I think he's actually going to show you the live version of it so that you can use it. So for us, this is a tool not only for residents associations, it's also for tools for colleagues who are working in local authorities, because that's when you can actually begin to pick up things before they are brought to your attention if you use this tool. Okay, over to you, Michael.
All right, so this is the home page of the tracker. So as Dr. Marisa mentioned, we are tracking across 4 areas. The first is water provision, the second is refuse, the third is primary health, and then finally we're looking at how cities are performing with regards to their income and expenditure. So for the first one, so I'm just going to highlight 2, water and income and expenditure, because what we see for water in terms of how it functions is more or less the same of what you'd observe under refuse and primary health. So under water, we have got 4 broad clusters that we're looking at. The first one is we're asking citizens questions with regards to water provision. Then we're asking them about how water service communication is handled by the city. Does the city explain when water is going to be available or not? We are also looking at billing issues. For one, I know Harare was notoriously labeled for not having a billing system, I think, for over 6 months or something like that. So we're looking at some of those things and asking citizens whether they're getting billing statements. Then we are also looking at maintenance and reporting, that is to say how cities handle reports to do with water service provision or any maintenance issues that might arise. So under water provision, we have got a couple, so like my colleague Dr. Melissa mentioned, we've got a questionnaire that we send out every month. So the tracker basically highlights the questions that we're asking citizens and the responses that they're giving. So for instance, the first question is, do you have a connection to municipal water at your house, or has municipal water been connected to your residence? So for July, we had 853 responses, and then you find that for the bulk of the cities, they were connected to the city's water supply. Then for those that, we then have a follow-up question to say, select the statement that most accurately describes municipal water availability in your city. So the cities are color-coded. We've got Bulawayo, Harare, Gweru, and Mutare. So if we want to see what the residents in Bulawayo are saying, you just hover over Bulawayo, you click, and then it then shows you. So like what was highlighted to say that 47% of the residents in Bulawayo say that they've got water at least 2 days per week, and then just about 16% say that they've got water 3 days per week. So it just goes on and on with up to 7 days a week, and even residents that say that they don't get water at all for other cities. So we also have the ability to toggle between months to then sort of give you a trend analysis of what citizens said in a particular month vis-a-vis what they said in another month. Then we are also tracking, like we said, income and expenditure across Harare, Bulawayo, Mutare, and Gweru. So if we look at Gweru, what we then did is that we said, of the 3 issues that we are looking at, and this data is based on cities' blue books, their budgets, so it's not data that we are just pulling out of the air. So of the 3 issues that citizens ranked as the most important that they wanted addressed, which is water, refuse collection, and healthcare, we noted that Bulawayo, in their 2020 budget, 2020 budget, they allocated 35.6% of their resources towards that. Of that, we then also noted that 26.2 is allocated towards water, 2.4 towards refuse collection, 7% towards towards healthcare. So if we are going to be looking at it pictorially, this is what it would look like. So the rest of the budget is constituted by the green segments there, and then these other segments are highlighting the three issue areas that we're looking at. Then we also give a figures breakdown of how much in terms of ZWL or Zim dollar values that was allocated. Then we look at it historically to say, using the interbank rates in 2020, how much was it? I think in 2020, I think we'll
2 January.
Yeah, 2 January. 2 January. We highlight what the rate was. We also highlight what the rate was using a parallel market rate. So we've got links to the rates that we use that we used to calculate these, and then so for all the cities we've got two tables. The first table just looks at the three components that we're looking at in terms of budgeting, which is solid waste management, which at times we abstracted for refuse collection, and then we also look at water services and health. So that's the first table. Then the second table is more comprehensive. It looks at sub-programs or programs that the city highlighted that they'll be allocating resources to. So in a nutshell, that is what our tracker looks like. So to access it, you can either go directly to localgovtracker.zimcitizenswatch.org, or you can go to our website, Civio Institute. There's a bar, civioinstitute.org. So there's a bar on the top that highlights all of our platforms. So Zim Citizens Watch, the national government policy tracker. Then we've got the local government tracker. We also track the national budget. So we've got open budget Zim there. Then we track prices across cities as well. And we've got a think tanks platform that sort of tracks what think tanks are in Zimbabwe, which think tanks are in Zimbabwe, and the work that they're doing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Molisa and Mike. Accommodating the slight delay we had, we'll just open the floor for about 15 minutes of interaction with the tracker as presented. So if you've got any questions, just kindly raise your hands. We will take 3 at a time. Now, earlier we had prescribed a general rule to keep our masks on, but because of the streaming and the current positioning of the microphone, we will give allowance for delegates. When you are speaking, you can lower. The rest of us will keep our masks on. And the science, I believe, from what we've been following over the last few months, will ensure that the rest of us are protected from you while you are speaking. But once you are done, please remember to cover yourself. So with that, like I said, we'll take 3 questions at a time, or 3 contributions at a time, and allow the team to respond, and then continue in that fashion. We've got about 15 to 20 minutes to do that. We'll be running through to 20 to 11 with this particular portion. So anyone with any questions to Dr. Molisa? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Joe, for your presentation. But I think there's something that I picked up when you were talking about the issue to do with policies. You then said, in most cases, the challenge is that the major problem is not that there are no policies in local authorities, but the problem is that people in the local authorities, they don't want to follow their policies. But I think it's slightly different with the situation that is in Gweru. In Gweru, the problem is that there are no policies. It's not an issue of having policies that are not being followed, but there are no policies to follow. And hence, this has created a lot of problems. I'll share with you the forensic land audit, which was done recently in Gweru. You would actually see that it is actually a problem of lack of policies, because stands are created in the engineering department. When they are created in the engineering department, how they are then transferred to Chamber Secretary's department, to the housing for sale, there is no clear policy in terms of what should be followed. So for me, this is the reason why we have several challenges that we are having in the city of Gweru. It's not that there are policies in existence, but there is lack of policies. For example, the issue to do with the housing list, it's not clear whether it's mandatory that when you're in the housing list, you're supposed to get a stand. It's not clear whether the issue to do with the housing list is important or not, because at the end of the day, when the local authorities are selling their stands, it's on first come, first served basis, because they want some money. But why then do they continue having this waiting list? It's also a question that I don't understand. So for me, our major challenge as a city is not the presence of policies that are not being followed, but the lack of policies themselves. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mpofu and Catherine.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm supposed to stand, but thank you so much, facilitator. I wanted to talk about a few things maybe that I wanted clarification on. I know that the tracker is largely based on probably the manifestos that come from the political parties. But when you look at, I've never read a manifesto because maybe I don't have a political party. But what I'm saying is sometimes those are promises that are made. How do you evaluate in terms of implementation, in terms of practicality? Because for instance, I can make a statement which is contrary and unimplementable when it comes to policy of the local authority. So it remains in the manifesto, but even if you come into the now the implementation, because you've got these policies, you've got how governance is done at local level. How do you check to say this manifesto in terms of policy, it's already aligning to existing constitution, Urban Councils Act? How do you check that? Because you are going to run with promises that are promises. So I don't know, that was the first one. Then I didn't really catch the suburbs that you are monitoring for Bulawayo. But when you mentioned them, my thought was that there needs to be a balance. For instance, when you mentioned most of them were in the high density areas, I didn't, it has to be at some stage almost a citywide approach. But if you look at the residential areas that were mentioned, I didn't get the feeling that they were representative of the city as a whole. So maybe that's something to look at. And then I also noted, okay, I like the think tank platforms. I think I'll be interested to know about that, because I was reading somewhere where you can actually become a think tank city. There are cities that are called think tanks that just specialize in having think tanks and coming up with position papers. So I think we're interested in that as a city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mine is just maybe I just wanted clarification on issues, because like I was looking at the way maybe residents rated various services. For example, we had somewhere where they were talking about health as being non-existent in the city. I wanted to find out what the indicators really were when you say it's non-existent, because there may be a number of issues. At times it may be the issue of maybe the service being unaffordable to people, and if people don't go there, they may say the service is not there. It could be an issue of, okay, I go to the clinic health facility. When I get there, all they do is just check my maybe check my BP, check my weight, and then when it comes maybe to the medication, I'm told there's nothing. So I wanted to find out exactly what they meant when they said there's the service is non-existent. And then on the garbage collection, I noticed that they said like maybe there wasn't much difference from the time before the elections to the time now. And again, I'm also trying to look at, okay, what baseline are we using when we say, okay, when we ask these questions, because like at least you should have like maybe a baseline, okay, before elections, this is what we're looking at. After elections, this is what we are looking at. So I wanted to find out. And then the other thing is normally when you get to find out on service delivery, wouldn't it be more comprehensive if you also come to the service provider and also find out maybe what the challenges are, so that at least when you now come out and say, okay, the residents say A, B, C, D, but you can always have like a proviso to say maybe this could be the case, so that at least we have like a comprehensive report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Because I can, I just wanted to piggyback on the health issue. Looking at specifically, I just wanted to find out, Doc and team, with regards to the timing, because on the health, I think I wanted to just see if there was a correlation between the time. I think you dated this at May, and just thinking around the national health crisis itself, public hospitals, doctors, nurses being on strike, and if in the minds of residents the two were concomitant, because I think those then become idiosyncratic issues in a specific timing, and being able to unpack that. And then also just thinking around the issue that, because this is also dealing with this is more of a perception index, if I understand it correctly, more than a reality index. I think that's the challenge with Zimbabwe, with being third most corrupt country in the world. It's a perception and may not always be a reality. So I think this may provide, and I may be answering for you, but this may provide a dialogue opportunity more than an entrenching of battle lines as we go forward between residents and their local authority. Dr. Morisa? Oh, you've got yours, okay.
You allow me to, well, now I can take off my...
Yes, sir.
But very important questions. Can I start off with Mrs. Mpofu's question? It was very interesting around how a city can become a think tank city. Because that's, I think we always say this, and even I was pleasantly surprised that even the head of state acknowledged that Zimbabwe as a country, we've missed out on new innovations. He said we're 10 years behind. I believe we're 20 years behind. Because what you are raising has become best practice in many cities now. Acknowledging the fact that all the answers, all the wisdom is not going to lie in a city or in city officials. Acknowledging that there are sites of knowledge that are outside of the city. Your university, your other think tank organizations, your residents associations who have lived experiences around this. But it's the challenge of saying, how do you create a platform tapping into those different knowledges, and not just for, because the challenge we have in the country, we tick boxes. So when it comes to budget, you want to have a budget meeting, then you tick the box that you had the budget meeting. Half the time when we are called into those consultations, a draft of sorts exists. But when we're really serious about consultation, we have to get dirty with consultation so that we actually get what is happening. So you deploy your university to carry out the research for you. It brings in the data of what the citizens want. You deploy the different urban council planners, whatever urban planning teams that you have within council, within private sector. They begin to do that. before you know it, because think tank in its term is not necessarily an organization, it's a platform and a process. So who do you go to as council to seek for ideas? You can't know everything. That we acknowledge that there is even government, no one knows everything. We have to talk. And for especially when you are into service delivery, you have to really understand. And I always say this thing, we're also missing out on our youths. The attitudes that we show actually display a new sort of polarization around age and generation. Because some of the problems that we want fixed in the city, if we were to ask youngsters to come and fix them with the apps and everything, I'm the oldest in my organization. I lead a team of millennials and generation after them. I'm always astounded by the ideas they come up with. So I always think that we are missing out on that. So I think the idea of a think tank, Bulawayo could actually be the innovator around this. You could actually try to start these conversations because they are, honestly, they are harmless. It's a conversation to say, what should we do about water delivery? What out of the box thinking have we not yet considered? What shall we do about our roads? What out of the box ideas can we come up with? You may be surprised by what these people, these groups of people can come up with. So I think the idea of think tanks, I can refer you to a city in Denmark. I can send you papers around cities that have taken on board this approach. Because urban planning is becoming increased urban poverty. And this is not unique to Bulawayo or to any of the cities in Zimbabwe. It's cutting across. How do you deal with or connect you with Mzime and others who have also been working on a sub-regional project where they've been doing these city think tanks in Durban, in Lusaka, Harare as well. Yeah. So all those could be good experiences for you to consider. Then let me go into the more technical, and Natsai and Michael may help me if sort of get stuck. But let me just clarify this, Pastor Elliot. It's not a perception index, it's a reality index, because we are now taking on board lived experiences to say, in the past 4 weeks, how many days did you have water? So that should not be a perception. That should be something that you lived with at house number 32175 in Tumbani. We had water on these days, we know it, and we said. So it's literally a reality index. But the question that Mrs. Poff is asking to say, I hear the areas you are mentioning, but how come these other areas? I take the blame. My team wanted something. I said, we're a proper organization. We're not going to focus on what people in Kumalo do or people in Hillside do. Those people can put their boreholes, etc., etc. That does, because we want to go to where people, we say, these are people who are dependent. They've not done a plan B. They are dependent on councils for water, etc. But I hear you, because in terms of representativity, it would be good for us to expand in terms of our data set for Bulawayo, the numbers that we're asking, to make sure that we cover all the income groups, middle income, low income suburbs, and even the high income, so that we can see, then we can begin to challenge the city to say, maybe you are preferring these ones because maybe they pay higher rates compared to these ones. Could be that we could do that, and it could be another discussion point. And it will be very important. Then there's the issue around having a conversation with the service provider. That's a very important question, Patrick. And we are well known for that. So you could actually be setting up new practices for us, the engagement. But that's not an excuse on our part. Because for us, it's always been to say, when we have our monthly report, we should be able to take it to the local authority to say, these are the issues coming out of citizens. Based on our tracker, what are the issues from your end? And for us, it's not even about saying they should respond to us. For us, is to facilitate, again, a conversation like this. Use the tracker as a trigger of conversation. Not that this only conversation that you should have, but it just shows you certain points that you're not looking at maybe, or things that you know actually are a problem. But you use it as a discussion, improve on this. Let's see what the tracker will show in 3 months. Because the tracker is your tool. These are citizens that are giving you data without you expending any money. It's something that you can look at in your office. But for us, it's the accessibility to say, once we present the monthly data, to say, this is the monthly report that we got from residents in Bulawayo. What are the issues? What do you think could be driving this? All of a sudden, we're seeing that there's more people who are saying that there's no water. What is it? And you say, actually, it's right, because we're not generating water. Our capacity has really declined, etc. Then we say, but do citizens know? Yeah, because one of the things that they are tracking is the communication of the city. How is this city communicating with residents around water availability? Because for us, we actually think it helps for planning to say, oh, so if they're saying that, oh, there's another week without water, the little that I have, I can plan better. But in some cities, rare communication. So I think Bulawayo scores very well on communicating that. Then how do you evaluate in terms of, okay, I think that's what we've done now. In which resonance? Oh, Gweru, yeah, Gweru, this is a good one. Yeah, so I think it could just be a turn of speech, really, phrasing, because at times what we think, advocacy is in many stages, because many of the times when we talk about advocacy, we think, as fellow advocacy people like you, we think that if a policy is designed and is in place, we've won the battle. But it's just the beginning. So actually, where there are gaps on policies, it's easier for advocates, because that's what we advocate for. That's the starting point to say, we have seen the gap that there is no, just the communication between 2 units or 3 units in council is missing. That others are developing stands, that information is not being fed to these. There's no relationship between the housing waiting list and the stands that are being brought to the market. How do we make sure that there's a system that is transparent, not only at council level, but even for citizens? How do residents associations come into the place that they're also part maybe of the process of how stands are being allocated? So I think that in any process of advocacy, that's always the first stage to say, there is a policy gap here. Our colleagues in the policy advocacy lab will tell you more about that experience, to say, you start off by mapping, is there actually an existing policy? If it's not there, then the advocacy ask becomes, let's have a policy on this. Then you actually have the advantage. That's the first mover advantage, to say, you design it. You design what it should look like. You design what transparency and effectiveness should look like. So I think, yeah, so there are going to be areas, obviously everywhere, in all the cities, not just Gweru, where there will be certain problems that have no attendant policies. Then there will be certain problems that actually, when you were to talk to them, the smart ones in council will say, no, play policy already. But policy does not mean anything. It's just probably just a document. Because the next question we ask, to this policy, how much money have you allocated for its implementation? We may find that there's nothing. I can keep on.
There was one more question, I think, which she asked about council and political parties.
Oh yes. She says she doesn't read manifestos, etc. Yeah. So can you put the manifesto analysis? One of the things that we measured when we were doing the manifesto analysis was so these were the areas we were measuring manifestos. So if you look at their commitment to local government and what they were saying, the MDC and Nkosana Moyo's outfit were looking at an approach around supply of housing, etc., using private sector methods. So we said they were pro-market. This is not the developmental state model. They're very dependent on what the sort of private sector will do. But what you are now saying is some of the things that they are promising are actually outside of the confines of the Act, etc. But remember, this is power. This is when you are electing office holders who can actually come and change even the Act. So for us, that's the beginning to say the compact between citizens and Bulawayo City Council is not with those who are running the council, is with councillors. Because those are the people that say, we want to be led by the MDC. We're entrusting the affairs of the city to MDC, not ZANU-PF, not Alliance for the People's Agenda or whatever, but we trust the MDC. So we start off by there to say, if this is the party that has been given the mandate to run the city, where is it? What is that mandate that they've been given? The mandate is always based on what they committed, the pledge they made, etc. So for us, when we come back here, we look at what Nelson Chamisa and his bunch sort of offered, because we voted on the basis of that platform. Because as citizens, the only way we have at the moment is either to do incremental changes around advocacy, etc., throughout the elected period, or to change the political party if we feel they've not delivered on the promises at election day. But in the process, we look at this, and we also look, so the other challenge that we have, and it's very important, Mrs. Boff, is to what extent is the Bulawayo City strategy informed by the party's manifesto? Yeah? So now we begin to say...
You preempted my question.
Sorry.
Conversations need to be held outside camera.
No, I'm coming later. Let him finish.
All right, thank you, Doc. So what we're going to do, Engineer, I saw your hand up, but for the purposes of time, I think we've got maybe 2 or 3 other meetings taking place, and I think our breaks have been sequenced in such a way that we don't have crowding. We're going to take our tea break now. When we come back, we have our second session, which is around reflections on advocacy, and we'll then be able to tag further questions onto that, because I think the two are then dovetailing. So there'll be presentations from our respective groups regards their respective cities, and we'll be able to see that, and we'll then be able to couch further deliberation on this. So if you've got any questions relating to the tracker, you can then just take a note of them, and when we come into the plenary of the next session, we'll be able to pick those up as well. Thank you very much. We're going to break for tea. Natsai is going to let us know what we're doing. We go to the poolside. So we go out this room, turn to your left at the top, you'll go to the right.